consider myself a historian of comic book movies.
Watch it!
Two of the biggest questions in the comic book movie world right now. Number one, is Chris Evans returning to the MCU in Avengers Doomsday? And number two, will he be playing Steve Rogers? If he does, there's an unlimited amount of possibilities in the MCU multiverse right now, and we know that nothing is off limits when the biggest franchise in movie history is swinging for the fences. We have three options for you today in a Goldilocks situation. One's a little cold, one's a little hot, and one of them might be just right. So make sure to stick around for all three as we break down, will Chris Evans be back for Avengers Doomsday? The fourth Avengers movie, Avengers Doomsday, is just over a year away, and it seems to be part one of two of the finale for the Multiverse Saga. 6 years after the most well-executed ending in cinematic history, fans thought that the characters, actors, and showrunners that they love that built this connected universe would be gone forever. But out of ingenuity, creativity, or maybe just some desperation, Marvel Studios is bringing the band back together for round 4 in Avengers Doomsday. Downey is back as Dr. Doom. The Russo brothers are directing. Stephen McFeely is writing alongside multiverse liaison Michael Waldron, and Alan Silvestri is doing the music. Those are some of the biggest core pillars of the Infinity Saga. The biggest piece that has not yet to be confirmed is Chris Evans, who has worked with the Russos, Silvestri, and McFeely on every Captain America project since 2014. So for fun, let's just assume for this video, have some fun with me here. What if Chris Evans is returning for Avengers Doomsday? What would that look like?
I don't mean to make things difficult.
There are a bunch of different ways to get Steve Rogers back into the fold within the rules, rhythms, and restrictions of the Multiverse Saga. Some of them are more safe, like Old Man Cap, chilling on the moon, just having a good time. Our team goes and visits for some insight from the first Avenger. It would be a pretty great moment. The music would play. We'd probably even get an incredible Steve Rogers speech. The cameo would be fulfilled, and all would be very satisfying for fans. It's wholesome, it's fun, but they're doing things like bringing the face of the franchise, Robert Downey Jr., back to play one of the biggest villains in the Marvel Universe, so we have to assume they are going to take bigger swings than that. So that was our cold option. This next option is a little hot, maybe a little too hot, but it's also pretty fun. This is the variant path for Chris Evans back in the MCU.
That is America's ass.
Variants have been explained very well throughout the Multiverse Saga, and we've got a lot of different versions of variants. We've had the same actor playing multiple versions of the same character, like Doctor Strange and Wanda Maximoff. We've also had different actors playing the same characters, like all the Lokis in Loki, John Krasinski and Pedro Pascal, both being Reed Richards, and of course, Peter 1 through 3 in Spider-Man No Way Home. The third layer of that is actors that we know for playing one character, playing a completely different character. This is what we're expecting from Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. But that would not be the first example of it. The first example actually is Chris Evans. People forget this guy was in a movie in the MCU just last year as Johnny Storm.
Flame on! Sorry, what?
And that was no accident. Marvel Studios was testing the waters. They wanted to see how audiences would react to such an iconic character playing someone completely different. And that movie made $1.5 billion. And sure, that movie had all of the backup and support of Chris Evans playing Johnny Storm in the Fox Fantastic Four franchise, but the seed was planted, the flower has grown, the audience knows the idea behind it. If Evans can play two characters, why not a third? What? We can go a lot of different ways here. It could be a Molecule Man situation. We could even get some sort of Captain Hydra deal, where it's an alternate Captain America. But if I had to put my money on anything, it's a big bet, but it's a fun bet. I have Chris Evans as the Beyonder. In the comics, the Beyonder is an essential piece of the Secret Wars storyline. He is as essential to Secret Wars as Thanos is to the Infinity Stones. That is a big character for Marvel Studios to introduce this late into the game. Shout out Captain Marvel. So how do you pull that off? What do you do? If you want to get this character that's so impactful to the story to immediately connect with the audience, why not put a Mount Rushmore MCU actor in the role? And also, I want to pull up a quick side-by-side. Look at the Beyonder. He's got his white jacket. He's got his dark hair. He's got that shit-eating grin that we all love so much. And then, look at Chris Evans in Not Another Teen Movie. The vision's there. I can see it. And if somebody's going to give a big, mythical, cosmic speech about Secret Wars, why not the GOAT of monologues in the MCU, Chris Evans?
Assemble.
That's a big swing, maybe too big of a swing, maybe too hot of a take. Both those options are very fun. One of them is safe and toothless and captures a Cameo vibe. The other is wild and out there and puts Chris Evans right back into the center of the Avengers story. I think the most likely and best option might fall somewhere right in the middle, something that is just right. This would be the Incursion option, and let's do a quick background of the last time we actually saw Steve Rogers in Avengers Endgame. Steve goes back in time to return the Infinity Stones and Mjolnir back to their original points within the main MCU proper timeline. But instead of coming back, he goes past his jump point and returns to 1945 to live with Peggy and get that dance and the greatest ending in comic book movie history. But that decision by Steve to go back in time to live with Peggy might actually be the linchpin of Avengers Doomsday. The question is, did Steve Rogers, by doing that, cause an incursion? MCU fans are taught in Loki, What If, Multiverse of Madness, and Ant-Man Quantumania that an incursion is when two universes or two different realities collide, and one of them or both of them has to be destroyed, or it's a domino effect in the multiverse, causing all this chaos that everybody is so worried about. In 2019, the Russo brothers, after Endgame, explained in their headcanon, which might be the headcanon we should pay attention to, they are directing these movies, that Steve Rogers went back in 1945 to live his life with Peggy, while the original Steve Rogers is still frozen in ice, creating a separate alternate MCU universe where there are two Steve Rogers, one living through the 20th century and the other frozen in the Antarctic. That means our Steve is living in a new timeline outside of the MCU proper until he jumps back in 2023 as an old man to give the shield to Sam Wilson, making him Captain America. Several different things there could trigger an incursion. It could be two Steves living in one universe together, one alive and one frozen but still alive. Like Walt Disney, Steve Rogers never died in the ice. It could also be Steve going back to his original universe after creating an alternate universe all by himself. Or this decision could be a cascading domino effect that sends our MCU as we know it into a spiral in this alternate universe that leads directly to Avengers Doomsday, and that is where the big theory comes along. Strap on those tinfoil hats and follow along with me about how Steve Rogers could domino into Tony Stark becoming Dr. Doom. So here we go, little MCU history lesson here. If Steve returns in 1945, that means that Howard Stark is probably never searching the ocean to find him. If Howard Stark is never searching the ocean to find Steve Rogers, he probably never stumbles upon the Tesseract, and that moment might be the most consequential scene in the entire MCU because everything falls into place because of that. A lot of things change if Howard Stark never finds the Tesseract. Number one, S.H.I.E.L.D. probably never starts Project Pegasus researching the Tesseract's energy properties. If Project Pegasus never happens, and Carol Danvers never gets her powers, and we get no Captain Marvel. No Captain Marvel means that the Tesseract does not end up on Nick Fury's desk, Dr. Selvig is not researching it, and Thanos does not send Loki to go retrieve it on Earth. If Loki never comes to Earth with the scepter that has the Mind Stone in it, that means that we never get Vision getting his powers, but we also don't get Wanda Maximoff and Pietro Maximoff getting their powers as well. Also, if Thanos never sends Loki to Earth to find the Tesseract, there's probably no Battle of New York. If there's no Battle of New York, the Avengers might not ever really assemble, and when there's no Avengers, what happens to the story after that? The MCU as we know it is completely different in this alternate reality. This alone might be able to create an incursion big enough for someone very powerful to notice. That someone might be Dr. Doom, played by Robert Downey Jr., and this is where our story gets very interesting and could lead directly to the plot of Doomsday. Let's play a little what-if game, classic Marvel fashion. What if Howard Stark ever finds the Tesseract and doesn't explore renewable energy as hard? What if he focuses more on tech and weapons? What if that means that when Tony Stark is getting poisoned by his arc reactor, he doesn't have the information and research he needs from his dad to create the new element that saves his life? Tony Stark not being able to fix his poison problem is not just going to stop there. He might turn to some alternative solutions, something a little more twisted, something a little more dark, something a little more magic focused, something very much along the lines of the story of Doctor Doom. So in a chain reaction way, Steve Rogers returning to 1945 might actually end up causing Tony Stark to go down a path that much more represents the Doctor Doom character. And maybe when Steve jumps back to 2023, his original timeline, that causes an incursion between our MCU and the new MCU where Tony becomes Doctor Doom. And that might be why Doctor Doom goes back to that point in time to prune Steve Rogers away from his happy ending, and that is how we get Chris Evans back in an Avengers movie. There are plenty of theories to go around. All or none of these might be true, but that is the beauty of the multiverse. That is the beauty of the MCU leading into an Avengers movie. We all get on the internet and speculate wildly. So let me know what you think. If Chris Evans comes back, who do you think he will play? Do you think any of it will be related to why Robert Downey Jr. is Doctor Doom? And does any of this lead into Battleworlds or Secret Wars in any significant way? Let us know down here in the comments. I'm Matt Rimke. Until then, we'll see you next time.